Hi, welcome to another edition of Hunkajunk Car Mods Garage. Alright, this is another edition of the 1994 base Cobra model car that we're putting a HO 302 in. We're rebuilding it. Let's recap on what we've done so far. We took and we sprayed lubricant on the block that we found at a dollar store that pulls the rust out of the block. We cleaned the block. We got it prepared to hone out our cylinders and everything like that. After honing our cylinders, we took the block and we washed it with hottest water we could stand and Dawn dish soap. Then rinsed it with more hot water. Blew it off to where there was no water on it. Dried it real good. Then we took and lubricated our cylinders and our lifter ports, distributor hole. We've got her all cleaned up. She's sitting here. We had it wrapped. We unwrapped it. Now today what we're going to do is we're going to be doing the crank and crank bearings. We've got our caps all cleaned up, ready to be put bearings in. We got the bottom here ready to put bearings in. Alright, we're cleaning our crank up here. I use emery cloth on that and go the same direction. I don't want to go any other direction that the bearing wouldn't go. What I do is I roll it back and forth. We have diesel fuel in this container here. Alright, we're here ready to put our main bearings in. Our crank is all clean. Our caps are all clean. Here's our bearings here. What we're going to do is open these up. Okay, now we're going to put our main cap bearings in. We got here, these are the bottoms. We need the tops because we got our motor upside down. That's where our oil journals are. We're going to start out with number one. Put your bearing in. You got a little notch right there in it. You put that in the notch. Just set it in place where it's even with the block. Get it there. Okay, right there. Take your time with it and just push it down on the one end. You should be set right in there. Just like that. Make sure they're even, not sticking up. Come to the next one. Do the same thing. Put it in the notch. Hold your thumb on one end. Push in with the other. Try to keep it straight. Try to move on you a little bit, but you should be okay. Make sure it's in there good and tight. Now here's the difference. On a Ford, this big one here goes into the center. You take that and you do it the same way. It's a little harder sometimes. You might take both hands to do it. Make sure she's in there nice and tight and not sticking up. Sometimes I grab a socket, put it right on the one edge so it doesn't cut me. Back and forth until I get it down in there. And go back to the smaller ones. Put that one in here. And they're fairly simple to do. Come to this one here. Same thing. On him. Didn't even on both sides. Now what we're going to do is, your caps are numbered between 1 to 4 and an EB 020. This is where your main bearing or your main seal goes. So we'll start out with number 1. Number 1 is just a standard cap. Doesn't have the wide edge on it. Pull our bolts out. Flip it upside down. Get one of our smaller ones. Put that end in first, and then push down with your thumb on the other end. Make sure they're in there good and tight. That bearing is done. The cap. Come to the next one. Do the same thing and repeat. There, thumb on it, and down in. Alright, now if you remember right, it's number 3 has the wide bearing that goes on it. This also has the bolt in it for the pickup tube, the oil pickup tube. We'll take this one, bring it over here, put that into place, right there. Get it there, push it down, it's a little hard, so we'll grab a socket, get it right on the edge, and shove her down in there. You gotta make sure you don't hit that with anything. Put it on something solid, although the cap is not straight. It's got a rounded edge to it, so it's hard. That one goes right there. That one's done. Come back. Do our next one. This would be number 4 cap. Then take the small one here. The easy ones we'll call it. But they're easy to push down in. That one's in there. Yes, I'm a smoker, and if I offend somebody, I apologize. Alright, our last cap. Put it in the groove. Put the thumb there. Push down on it there. It's ready to go. Okay. Now we're ready to install our crank. Take some of our assembly lube, and we're just going to put some right down on this baby. Come on out of there. Right like that, a little line on every one of them. Come over here and do this one. Get plenty of it on there. I like to do it on, make sure she's lubricated. With each one of them. Cover the whole bearing. Then I take my finger, kind of rub it around, make sure all the metal's covered on it. Make sure your hands are clean too. Well, I can get behind it here so you can see what I'm doing. Do the whole bearing. Let that drip right down into that oil journal. Cover the whole thing out. Alright, even if you get it here on the motor where the bolts go, it really don't matter. Now, our crank. Set that down in there, nice and easy like. There she is. Set right down in. Alright, now we're going to do our main caps. First start out with number 1. Number 1 has a point, goes to the motor, or to the front of the motor. So we'll take that, put a little bit of our lubricant on it, our assembly luber. Lube her right up. Just set that baby right on there. Then we get our bolts. Go to number 2. Number 2. Put all that on it. There we go, like that. Take the finger. Arrow to the front of the motor, which is facing toward you. Set that right on there. Go to number 3. Do the same thing, lubricate her right up. Put the stuff right on there. I mean, just soak her right on. Arrow to the front. Drop her down in. Number 4. Put all lubed up, arrow to the front. Just set her there is all I'm doing. I'm not pushing them down or nothing. I'm just setting them there. And E1, which is number 5, which is your back bearing. You just set that right there. Arrow to the front, like that. Put it on there. This is right in the groove. And now, I need a rag here. We'll start dropping bolts in. There's number 1, number 2, number 3. Now remember, number 3 has a one that's like this, and that would go on this side because that's where your oil pickup tube would go across. The oil pickup tube, and I'll show you exactly. Your oil pump's going to be there like that. The oil pickup tube's going to be like that. So that means this one goes here, and this one goes there. We have the rest of our bolts. Drop them down in. They're all the same size. Alright. What you're going to need to do this job is a small 1/4 inch drive with an extension, 3/4 inch socket for older school motors. You're going to need a torque wrench. Now this is 1/2 inch drive torque wrench. For the newer motors, you're going to need a 19 millimeter socket. You can use both, but the 19 millimeter is what they use on the bolts that they used were all millimeters from 1980 on up. Everything became millimeter bolts. It might be sooner than that, don't quote me. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to get started on our crank. Alright, we're going to finger tighten all our bolts down. Down. Alright, when we get to number 4 and we get them tightened down by finger tighten, we're going to take we're going to put our rear main seal in before we lock that down. It's really easy. You can take and put them in too, but it's easier to, after the fact, but it's easier to put them in before you lock down the okay. Then take and lock down your nuts. Your bolts. Finger tight. Then we'll come here. We'll grab our, go down here. We'll grab our 3/4 inch extension and ratchet. Just snug them a little bit. Alright, and we're going to start. Remember the cap, the bearing that had the sides on it. We're going to start there. We're going to come here like this. Make sure them are down. Like that. Now there's two ways you can go. You can go forward, or you can start at the next one. But you want to work back and forth. So we'll go here to this one. I'm going to that one down. Put this one down. Come up here. Caps the lock down in there. That one. That one. Alright. Now this one. Snug. Undo this one. Get that in. I'm not forcing it. These are supposed to be 60 to 70 pounds with the torque wrench. Not putting no pressure on it. Now we're going to go to the torque wrench, and we're going to repeat the same way. We're going to start out and we're going to set our that up. I'm going to set this at 30. I'm going to start from there and torque them all at 30, and then we're going to go another 35 or 40. Alright, here we go. Alright, that's 30. Come back to this one. There's 30. Come to this one. There's 30. 30. Alright, I'm going to loosen our dial up here. Come on. There we go. And we're going to set this at 40. Alright. So now we're going to set this dial up to 70. Or let's go 60, let's say 60 and 70, let's go 65. All our things are torqued down. Now we're going to come here and we're going to spin the crank. Everything seems to be working nice. No drag on it or anything except for the assembly lube. And that's it for putting the crank in. It should be all fine. Everything looks good. Alright, that's it for this episode of the 1994 SN95 Cobra base model new motor 302 HO. You can see in the background my son's cleaning up the pistons and everything like that. So the next episode we're going to have will be us taking and putting the rod bearings in, putting the pistons in, and putting the rings on the pistons. If you reverse that, that'll be the right way. The rings, and putting the pistons in and putting the rod bearings on. Putting the pistons in and the rod bearings on are the same, done at the same time. So, remember, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to those that have subscribed, and thanks to you too subscribing if you do. I hope this has helped you all out, and have a great day, and we'll see you next time.